2004, the year that gave us the Nintendo DS, Shrek 2, Catwoman, Sonic Heroes, and the final episode of Friends, just to name a few of the defining events in pop culture that year. If you're someone who uses nostalgia as life support at this point like me, then you know all too well how it feels when you hear a certain song that immediately takes you back to a specific era in your own life. One of my favorite things about media and pop culture is how you can get a feel for how life was at any given point in time by just watching a movie or show or hearing a specific song from that year. Nostalgia is a drug, one that will cause you to find yourself watching hour-long compilations of television commercials from a specific year at 2 a.m., reminiscing about how back then your biggest worry was figuring out what time the new That's So Raven episode was going to air, because 8-year-olds don't know what 8/7 Central means. But I'm way off topic. 2004 was a very interesting year in pop culture, a year responsible for delivering some great shows, movies, video games, and most importantly, music. Janet Jackson released her oft-overlooked 8th studio album, Damita Joe, early in the year in March. A spiritual successor in many ways to her 2001 album, All For You, and a hidden gem in Janet's discography, Damita Joe's release was generally overlooked due to a rather notorious occurrence from the previous month. Yes, the incident. On February 1st, 2004, she performed a medley of All For You, Rhythm Nation, and The Knowledge. Enter Justin Timberlake. Justin appeared on stage as a surprise guest to perform his song Rock Your Body alongside Janet. He pulled off a part of Janet's costume, revealing Janet's right breast, still covered by a nipple shield, mind you, for less than a second, and the ensuing fallout from the incident was unlike anything the music industry had ever seen. The Janet Jackson halftime incident has been mulled over and scrutinized exhaustively by the public and media in the 20 years since. However, in recent years, it has been mostly agreed upon that the punishment and backlash that Janet received from the incident was an overall overreaction, to say the least. The incident was actually so notorious that the very term wardrobe malfunction was coined because of it. Justin Timberlake escaped the incident rather unscathed, his career continuing to flourish for more than a decade afterwards. However, Janet was left as a scapegoat and treated as such, her music being blacklisted on radio stations, and even her invitation to the Grammys that year was revoked. Mind you, Justin was still allowed to not only attend, but perform as well. Damita Joe's commercial success, or lack thereof, was also a casualty of the halftime fiasco, being viewed as a commercial disappointment by Janet's standards at the time, and its overtly sexual nature was frowned upon due to her Super Bowl incident still being fresh in the minds of the public upon its release. Despite still managing to debut at number 2, the aforementioned blacklisting of Janet's discography, particularly in the United States, doomed any and all singles from the record to be dead on arrival. The album's lead single, Just a Little While, only managed to peak at number 45 on the US Billboard Hot 100, being Janet's lowest charting single since 1983. Adding more fuel to the disastrous fire was the fact that the single leaked prior to its official release, causing Janet and her team to rush its release, music video, and overall promotion. Just 2 months after the single's release, it all but disappeared from radio without much fanfare, undoubtedly attributed to the aftermath of the Super Bowl. The album's second single, I Want You, peaked at number 57 on the Hot 100, while the third and final single, All Night Don't Stop, only managed to make it to the abysmally low number 19 on the bubbling under charts. It's no secret that the overreaction to and fallout from what was ultimately an accident would do arguably irreparable damage to Janet's career, as the blacklisting had ripple effects felt even to this very day. A woman who was once at the forefront of the pop landscape was suddenly gone, and despite the resurgence that she saw in later years, the Super Bowl effectively halted any and all momentum that Janet had in the 2000s decade. Her legacy was unfairly diminished. The commercial failure of Damita Joe really was a shame, because this album showcased some of Janet's best, particularly with songs like the aforementioned I Want You and All Night Don't Stop, but also album cuts like the infectious Strawberry Bounce, the title track, and R&B Junkie. Damita Joe sold 3 million copies worldwide, a steep decline from her previous 5 albums, which all sold well beyond the 5 to 10 million marks. And the decline in Janet's album sales would only continue as time went on and the blacklist effects were still felt. At the time, Damita Joe was Janet's first album in 20 years to not yield a number 1 or even a top 10 single in the United States. Just one day after Damita Joe's release, Usher would release his fourth and to date his most successful album, his magnum opus, Confessions. Confessions is widely regarded as Usher's artistic peak and one of the greatest albums ever created, being referred to as the thriller of the 21st century by several publications and critics due to its sheer success. It is the second best-selling album of the 2000s decade in the United States behind NSYNC's No Strings Attached. With over 8 million copies sold in 2004, the album was viewed as a sign of recovering album sales in the US following 3 years of decline. The success of Confessions was emblematic of a peak success in R&B music. The success of the genre is very evident when looking at the number one songs of 2004. Outkast's Hey Ya and The Way You Move, both of which were the lead singles from the hip-hop duo's fifth studio album, the critically acclaimed Speakerboxxx The Love Below. Both songs opened 2004 as the first two number one songs of the year, although it's worth noting Hey Ya initially hit number one in late 2003. Usher's Yeah, Burn, Confessions Part 2, and the Alicia Keys duet My Boo all occupied the top spot at various points throughout the year. Yeah was the longest running number one single of 2004 and the best selling single as well, being certified 13 times platinum. It is Usher's best selling single and one of the best selling singles of all time. At the end of the 2000s decade, Yeah was ranked second on the Hot 100 decade chart, being beaten only by Mariah Carey's similarly inescapable and massively successful We Belong Together, which came out a year later in 2005. Combined, all the singles from Usher's Confessions spent 28 weeks at number one during the calendar year of 2004, making him the number one artist of 2004 based off weeks spent at number one. The few weeks of the year that weren't dominated by Usher saw Ciara's debut single Goodies topping the chart for an impressive 7 weeks, tying with Usher's Burn as the second longest running number one of the year. Ciara's debut album of the same name would drop later that year on September 28th. Kanye West, Twista, and Jamie Foxx claimed the top spot for 1 week with the classic Slow Jams, which served as both the lead single from Twista's fourth studio album, Kamikaze, and the second single from Kanye's debut studio album, The College Dropout, both of which dropped in 2004. On May 26, 2004, Fantasia became the third winner of American Idol, and her debut single, I Believe, was released the following month. With this, Fantasia became the first artist in history to have their very first song debut at number one. Juvenile's Slow Motion, Terror Squad's Lean Back, and Snoop Dogg's Drop It Like It's Hot all hit number one in 2004 as well. What stands out immediately about this list is the absolute domination of R&B, hip-hop, and black artists in general. Urban music attained a level of unrivaled commercial dominance during the early 2000s, which featured massive crossover success on the Billboard charts by R&B and hip-hop artists. All 12 songs that topped the Billboard Hot 100 in 2004 were performed by black recording artists and accounted for 80% of the number one R&B hits that year. I'd honestly forgotten just how unstoppable and universal R&B was in the early to mid-2000s. It was really the standard of the industry for the longest time, so much so that even traditional pop acts like Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, and Justin Timberlake integrated it into their own music in order to gain crossover appeal. In the early 2000s, urban music was pop music. All of this makes the steep decline of the genre in the decade that followed even more astonishing to see, and although we haven't seen R&B be quite as prominent a force as it was back then, it's definitely recovered substantially in the last 5 years. Gwen Stefani's debut solo studio album, Love, Angel, Music, Baby, was released in November 2004 and kicked off one of the most iconic pop star runs in the 2000s. Inspired primarily by 1980s dance music, the album was a runaway success for Gwen, being the 6th best-selling album worldwide in 2004. What You Waiting For was released as the lead single on September 28, 2004. The single only peaked at number 47 on the Billboard Hot 100 in the US, but was commercially successful overseas, topping the chart in Australia and reaching the top 10 in several countries, including France, Netherlands, New Zealand, Sweden, and the United Kingdom. Rich Girl featuring Eve was released as the album's second single on December 14, 2004, becoming Gwen's first top 10 song as a solo artist in the US, where it peaked at number 7 on the Hot 100. The quintessential 2000s smash hit Hollaback Girl, as well as Cool, Luxurious, and Crash were all released as the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th singles from the album in 2005 and 2006 as well. The impact of Love, Angel, Music, Baby isn't acknowledged all that much, although it deserves far more recognition as its formula was used as a blueprint for latter successful albums like Nelly Furtado's Loose and especially Fergie's The Duchess. Pop music icon and legend George Michael would release his final studio album, Patience, on March 15, 2004. It was his first album in 8 years at the time. The album didn't do as well as George's previous efforts in the United States, but it was a success elsewhere. While George Michael would release his final album, Fantasia, who as I mentioned won American Idol Season 3, would release her debut album, Free Yourself, in November 2004, which debuted at number 8 on the Billboard 200 chart and spawned the aforementioned number 1 single, I Believe, as well as the R&B classics Truth Is and the title track. Maroon 5's debut album, Songs About Jane, was initially released in 2002, but saw a re-release in late 2003 that triggered a worldwide surge in popularity for the band. This Love, She Will Be Loved, and Sunday Morning were all released over the course of 2004 as the second, third, and fourth singles from the album, respectively. This Love won Maroon 5 their first Grammy Award, and alongside She Will Be Loved became signature songs for the band, as well as staple songs in 2000s pop. As of 2022, Songs About Jane is one of the 15 best performing albums of all time without having any of its singles reach number 1. A 13-year-old JoJo would release her self-titled debut album in 2004 as well. Her debut single, Leave, Get Out, peaked at number 12 on the Hot 100, but reached number 1 on the pop songs chart, making JoJo the youngest solo female artist to have a number 1 on the chart. Prince released not 1, not 2, but 3 albums this year as well. Musicology was Prince's 28th studio album, his most successful album in years at the time. Musicology peaked at number 3 on the Billboard 200. It was his first record to chart in the US in 3 years. His 29th and 30th studio albums, The Chocolate Invasion and The Slaughterhouse, were both released that same year, although they were exclusively available online. Prince would also be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this year as well. 2004 was a big year for some of the biggest names in music, especially those who released an album the previous year and were still actively pushing their eras well into 2004. Britney Spears' 4th album, In the Zone, Alicia Keys' 2nd album, The Diary of Alicia Keys, and Beyoncé's debut album, Dangerously in Love, were all released in 2003. However, all 3 of these albums would see the fruits of their success well into the following year. After releasing the iconic Madonna duet, Me Against the Music, as the lead single, Toxic was released as the second single from Britney's In the Zone on January 12, 2004, to widespread critical acclaim. Undoubtedly one of Britney's most well-known songs, as well as an iconic part of 2000s pop, Britney personally selected the song as the second single, despite her label suggesting I Got That Boom Boom, which featured the Yin Yang Twins, or Outrageous. Toxic reached the top 5 in 15 countries, not including the United States, where it actually barely broke the top 10 at number 9, being Britney's first single to peak in the top 10 since Oops, I Did It Again in 2000. Toxic would also earn Britney her first ever Grammy. The Beautiful But Somber Every Time was released as the third single from In the Zone on May 10, 2004 to critical acclaim as well, seeing similar success to Toxic. One of the first songs finished for the album, the song was notably written in large part as a response to Justin Timberlake's Cry Me a River, and the fact that Justin's public persona capitalized off of painting Britney as the bad guy and exposing personal details of his and Britney's prior relationship after its end. Outrageous was the 4th and final single from In the Zone, being released in July 2004. The song fared the worst out of all the singles from In the Zone, peaking at number 79 on the Billboard Hot 100. Britney would embark on the Onyx Hotel Tour in support of In the Zone in March 2004. The tour ran until June, consisting of 54 shows. While the tour's title seems random, its original name was actually intended to be the In the Zone Tour, but Britney was sued for trademark infringement and banned from using the name. The tour unfortunately ended prematurely due to Britney suffering a knee injury that required surgery. Released at the tail end of 2003, The Diary of Alicia Keys is one of the greatest albums ever crafted and saw a massive level of success in 2004. If I Ain't Got You was released as the second single from the album on February 23, 2004. It peaked at number 4 on the Hot 100 and became her second consecutive number 1 on the Hot R&B Hip Hop Songs chart. The song won a Grammy for Best Female R&B Vocal Performance while being nominated for Song of the Year as well. Diary, the title track, was released as the third single on May 24, 2004. It became Alicia's third consecutive Billboard Hot 100 Top 10 single, peaking at number 8 and garnered her another Grammy nomination. Karma was released as the fourth and final single from the Diary of Alicia Keys on November 1st, 2004. It became the album's only single to miss the top 10 on the Hot 100, peaking at number 20. It didn't garner a Grammy nomination, but it did nab Alicia a VMA for Best R&B Video. Alicia would team up with USHER on the number 1 hit My Boo this year as well, being the fourth single from USHER's aforementioned Confessions. The song would become USHER's seventh and Alicia's second number 1 single. The Diary of Alicia Keys was a landmark release not only in Alicia Keys' career, but also R&B as a whole. The album appeared on several 2004 lists of top albums of the year, as well as being considered one of the greatest albums of all time by several media outlets. The album received 6 Grammy nominations, winning 3 of them, as well as 3 NAACP awards, 2 Soul Train awards, and 2 Billboard Music Awards. Even the album's 20th anniversary re-release received a Grammy, being recognized for Best Immersive Audio Album at the 66th Annual Grammy Awards, being Alicia Keys' 16th Grammy overall. To date, The Diary of Alicia Keys has sold 8 million copies worldwide. The album notably had 2 supporting tours, its own Diary Tour, which strictly visited North America and ran from February to April of 2005. Prior to the Diary Tour, however, Alicia would embark on the Verizon Ladies First Tour, which was a 3-way joint tour alongside Beyoncé and Missy Elliott. The tour jointly promoted The Diary of Alicia Keys, Beyoncé's Dangerously in Love, and Missy's 4th and 5th studio albums, Under Construction and This Is Not a Test. Tamia joined them as a special guest on select dates as well. The tour was quite the unique endeavor, being the first time at least 3 female R&B and hip-hop artists were featured as headliners, and was a success, grossing roughly $20 million from 30 shows. The tour was originally supposed to feature Beyoncé, Ashanti, Monica, Maya, and Mary J. Blige, but the latter 4 were unable to commit due to scheduling conflicts. And speaking of Beyoncé, it wouldn't be a Wayne video without her being mentioned, now would it? Her debut album, Dangerously in Love, was released the previous year and saw an unprecedented level of success. At the top of the year 2004, Dangerously in Love already had 3 top 5 singles from the previous year under its belt, with Crazy in Love, Baby Boy, and Me, Myself, and I. Naughty Girl was released as the 4th and final single from the album on March 14th, 2004, peaking at number 3 and continuing Beyoncé's then string of consecutive top 5 singles. The song received critical acclaim and won Best Female Video at the 2004 VMAs. Her and Luther Vandross's cover of Roberta Flack and Donny Hathaway's The Closer I Get to You was released as the 4th and final single from Luther's 13th and final studio album, Dance with My Father, on June 13th, 2004, netting both artists a Grammy win. By summer 2004, Beyoncé had officially concluded her debut era and switched gears, reuniting with Kelly and Michelle to begin work on what will become Destiny's Child's final studio album, Destiny Fulfilled, which was released on November 8th, 2004. Selling over 7 million copies worldwide, it is one of the best-selling girl group albums of all time. The album garnered 5 Grammy nominations as well. Lose My Breath was released as a lead single, and Destiny's Child's Comeback on September 9th, 2004, peaking at number 3. Soldier featuring T.I. and Lil Wayne served as the second single from Destiny Fulfilled and repeated the success of the former single. The third single, Girl, failed to recreate the success of the previous 2 songs, peaking at number 23 and ended Destiny's Child's streak of top 10 hits. Cater to You was the 4th and final single from the album, as well as the final Destiny's Child single at the time. The song peaked at number 14 on the Billboard Hot 100. The best-selling albums of 2004 are very telling, considering they are all from very different genres, but nonetheless, the variety is very interesting to see. Out of the 10 best-selling albums of the year globally, interestingly enough, 3 of them are greatest hits albums. Guns N' Roses, Shania Twain, and Robbie Williams all had greatest hits albums that were the 10th, 8th, and 7th best-selling albums of 2004, respectively. Destiny's Child's final album, Destiny Fulfilled, was the 9th best-selling album of the year, selling 7 million copies globally. Gwen Stefani's Love Angel Music Baby sits in 6th place with 8 million copies sold worldwide. The 3 best-selling albums of the year are notably the exact same for both the United States and worldwide. Eminem's 5th studio album, Encore, was the 3rd best-selling album of 2004, selling 11 million copies worldwide. Feels Like Home by Norah Jones was the second best-selling album of the year, selling 12 million copies globally. And the best-selling album of the year was Usher's Confessions, which sold a mind-boggling 15 million copies worldwide to date. We've seen who sold the most in 2004, but sales aren't the only indicator of acclaim. Awards and accolades are arguably just as important. The Grammy Awards were held on February 8th, 2004. The most nominations of the night was a four-way tie with Beyoncé, Jay-Z, Outkast, and Pharrell Williams all having 6 nominations each. Beyoncé would become the most awarded artist of the night, winning 5 Grammys that year. Looking at the big 4 categories of the ceremony, rock band Evanescence won Best New Artist, while Song of the Year went to Luther Vandross's Dance with My Father, beating out nominees like Christina Aguilera's Beautiful and Eminem's Lose Yourself. Outkast's legendary double album Speakerboxxx The Love Below won Album of the Year, while Record of the Year went to Coldplay for their song Clocks. The 2004 VMAs, which were held in August, saw Jay-Z leading the nominations with 6. He tied with Outkast as the most awarded of the night, as each act won 4 VMAs at the ceremony. Best Female Video went to Beyoncé's Naughty Girl, while Best Male Video went to Usher's Yeah. Outkast won Video of the Year for their smash hit, Hey Ya. Usher unsurprisingly dominated the American Music Awards that year, being both the most nominated and awarded of the night, leaving with 4 awards. Alicia Keys notably beat out Beyoncé and Janet Jackson for Favorite Soul R&B Artist. Despite his domination, Usher didn't win Artist of the Year shockingly, as it went to country singer Kenny Chesney instead. The Billboard Music Awards were held at the tail end of the year in December, and once again, Usher led the pack with an astonishing 21 nominations, leaving the show with 13, being by far the most awarded artist of the night. All in all, 2004 was a phenomenal year in music, one of my personal favorite years for pop music, and I'm sure there was a few songs that I may have missed, a few albums or moments that may not have made it for several reasons. Either they didn't fit the flow well, or they came out the year before and they were popular in 2004, but because they didn't come out that year, I didn't include them, or maybe they came out in 2004 but they didn't pop off until 2005. But all in all, I tried to give a general overview of what mainstream music looked like in 2004, and it's just interesting to see how different it was as opposed to now, 20 years later. So it was just a great video to make, and one that I had fun making. And if you've made it this far, please consider liking and subscribing, and tell me some of your favorite songs from this year. And feel free to tell me another year you'd like to see me tackle and dissect. I really enjoyed making this video, and I plan to make more like it, but just tell me which one you want to see. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. My name is Wayne, and I love you all. A legend's legacy. A woman who was once at the forefront of pop. A woman who was once at the forefront of pop. What? A woman who was. Ooh. A woman who was once at the forefront of pop. Of the pop landscape. Jesus Christ. A woman who was once at the forefront of the pop landscape was suddenly gone. I didn't say that right. A woman who was once at the. I said that too fast.